So let's talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, this is a foundational theory of motivation, and certainly to understand organizational behavior, we need to understand how to motivate employees. Essentially, Maslow proposed that we are driven by various needs into action. And of course, managers have thought, well, perhaps it's a good way for us to get employees to act in the way that we want them to act. The most basic needs are those physiological needs, such as hunger or thirst or sleep. In terms of managers addressing those needs, primarily pay is an avenue to address those basic physiological needs. Now, safety and security needs operate in a very similar way, and they might have more to do with shelter or personal safety and from particular harm such as crime or other types of safety issues. In terms of managing employee security concerns, this has largely been driven through kind of seniority plans where the consideration of continued employment is there security in that, and but other aspects like the security of loved ones in terms of health insurance and the security of the family that is provided by that, or other issues such as health insurance or employee assistance plans or even severance plans are issues that employees consider when they're thinking about their security over time. At the next level, we can look at the social and belongingness needs. And there's a wide spectrum of things that we can consider here, such as the need for acceptance and belongingness and friendship and affection. And these are social needs that people have. Now, these may be addressed through team building initiatives in formal and informal work groups. But in the contemporary context, we have to also consider inter-organizational social networks and how those can also contribute to a sense of social belongingness that people need. Continuing up the hierarchy, we can address esteem needs, and these represent the needs for achievement and status and power. Organizations often try to fulfill these needs through providing different status symbols, such as titles and promotions or banquets. Maslow considered self-actualization as the culmination of all the lower levels of needs. He thought of self-actualization as the drive to become what we're capable of being, all that you can be. So it includes growth and self-fulfillment and achieving one's potential. Now, when we look closely at Maslow's theory, we see that there are some specific propositions, such as the fulfillment progression hypothesis, that assumes that in order to even consider these higher order needs, you first have to pass through and fulfill lower order needs. So this hypothesis says that even to consider status needs, you have to have fulfilled your physiological needs and your safety needs and your social needs. Also, Maslow thought that these fundamental needs that were biological or security or social or ego in nature, that they were essentially deficiency needs, that as they were fulfilled, they became less motivating. Self actualization was considered a growth need. In this sense, it was proposed that the more you fulfilled self actualization, the more it motivated you. Now, when we take a critical eye to Maslow's theory, we see that there are some problems. There really hasn't been a good measurement of this theory that's been developed or has persisted over time. And as you dig deeper, you'll see that the very structure of needs has been challenged, and convincingly so by Aldifer. And so it may be that we can describe the needs that people have in fewer than five categories. Also, there's been some pretty convincing research that challenges the fulfillment progression hypothesis. So, these lower order needs may not lose all their motivating potential if they are fulfilled. And they may sustain, and what fulfillment means might be relative in nature. See equity theory. I think we really have to consider this criticism that self-actualization is this very Western concept and perhaps is not very universal. And I think if we really think about what fulfillment of life means, there are much more varied perspectives of that when we consider this question at a global perspective. Perhaps the most impressive thing about Maslow's theory is its longevity, but we have to attribute it to something. It is still widely recognized since its publication in 1943, and part of that is its intuitive logic. And we shouldn't underestimate this. If the theory is useful in terms of the minds of people, perhaps that contributes to its validity. It's easy for people to understand, and it's useful for that very purpose. And in fact, as the business context has become more global, and as we have thought more about issues of diversity and inclusion, this only seems to reinforce the relevance of this theory. And in fact, it's added some interesting nuance in that perhaps we need to reconsider what the meaning of self actualization is in different national contexts. And I think that's a very interesting question to leave you all upon. So thank you for listening if you made it this far. Take care.